Good afternoon. Welcome back to my channel. So, 4 days ago, I did a 16.5 mile hike. And then 2 days ago, I hiked up and down 70 flights of stairs with a 18-pound pack. And then did 100 squats with an 18-pound pack. And did 100 quad lifts with on my weight machine. And now today I'm back on the trail and I'm taking a lighter hike today. I'm only going to be doing about a 13-mile hike today. But I think my stamina is beginning to come around. I made some changes based on some of the suggestions made to me by viewers of the video that I did on stamina. I'm shifting the weight of the pack, the heavier weight of the pack, more closely to my spine, tightening my shoulder straps, etc. But again, it feels like the stamina is coming back. But let me tell you about today's video. It occurred to me when I was hiking here a few days ago that when I've done these training hikes, I've talked a great deal about the steepness of the hikes and the length of the hike and the stamina issues associated with the hikes, the training value of the hikes that I've been taking, the distances again. But I never took the time to dedicate one whole video to the incredible beauty of the hikes that I'm taking. And this hike that I'm on today is one of my most favorite hikes. I will probably do this easily 12, 13 times a summer. Honestly, there are parts of this hike where I feel like I'm hiking through Yellowstone. I'll be hiking through areas where the trees are more than 200 years old. And I think you'll be amazingly surprised that in the middle of the desert, we can have this incredibly lush ecosystem here in northern Utah. So come with me on this hike. I think you'll enjoy it. Got some surprises planned for it. And I think that we'll have a good time together. So I wanted to give you an impression of what this is like in Utah. As you look out there, you're looking at what should be the Great Salt Lake. Everything that you can see out there that has a whiter color should be under about 6 to 8 feet of water. Everything that you can see out here that's light brown should be under about 2 feet of water. And everything that you can see out there that's green should be under about 1 foot of water. And that island that you can see right out on the horizon, that's Antelope Island. It's not an island. Used to be, but the lake has receded so far that it is now connected to the mainland through the exposed lake bed. And here we have a display of mid-August wildflowers. They bloom later because of the altitude that we're at. But look at the astonishing beauty along this trail of wildflowers. Right now, we are at an elevation of approximately just under 6,000 feet. Don't even know what species of wildflowers these are, but you can see that they're really abundant in this area. Another view of these August wildflowers outside of the harsh glare of the sun. And now we're entering into a grove where some of these trees are, I've been told, 200 years old. Just take a look at the height. These trees are going up probably 65, 70 feet. Look at the magnificence of this grove that we're in. Isn't it incredible to think that we have these conifer forests in the middle of the desert? Really, really good stuff. A little bit better of an example of illustrating how old this tree is. So again, my hiking poles are about 36 inches. I'm just going to back up a little bit. And you can see that the trunk of this tree is easily 36 inches. So what we're looking at here likely is a tree that's about 2 centuries old, according to the information that I was given. And I would estimate this tree easily is going up easily 70 feet. This is another view of that tree that I just showed you. We're at about, probably about 60 yards away from it. You can see the height of this tree. And these types of trees are all over on this hike. It's just spectacular to be through here, to hike through here. We're at about 6,800 feet now, and this is a grove of quakies. These trees turn the most brilliant shade of gold in the fall. Unfortunately, this stand was really pounded by the windstorm of 2 years ago, and we lost a lot of the trees. But it is an absolutely beautiful grove. And this is the eastern edge of that quaky grove. And this grove is extended about, probably about a half a mile. So this is one of the things that really astonishes me on this trail. We are now just under 7,000 feet. And what you're looking at this altitude, is a patch of wild raspberries growing out of the side of the mountain. And it's a big patch. Look at how we've even got a couple of raspberries that are starting to develop here. Look at how dense this is, the size of these leaves growing out here on the very edge of the Great Basin Desert. I think there's a group of raspberries right in there, that you can see. Isn't that extraordinary to see these plants growing at this altitude? This is one of the few places along the entire length of this hike where you will find cedar trees. Almost everything else is either a pine, a spruce, or a fir. And then you have this little cedar garden, which I bet is probably not more than about 3 acres. And so at this point, we have ascended one canyon. We've come up about 5 miles. We've crossed a pass. And now we're in the process of descending down to the bottom of the canyon, which is about 7.5 miles from here, where my wife will pick me up. But just look at the spectacular pine forest that I'm in. Again, up here at this altitude, we're at about 7,200 feet. Up here at this altitude, the trees are probably about 65, 70 feet. But this is just such spectacular scenery. And fortunately, as I take this path, most of the next 7.5 miles will be downhill. But isn't this just absolutely lovely? And so this is a more distant view of the pine forest that we just traversed. I'm now turning the camera to the east. You can see the pine forest out on the hillside, and on the mountain that's in the center of the frame right now, we were just about maybe 100 feet below the top of that mountain as we crossed over and came down this way. But again, another truly stunning view. And from where I'm standing now, we'll go back into that pine forest again at a lower altitude. And then the mountain that you can see on the horizon, we'll be crossing that mountain and going due west back to the point that I'll be picked up by my wife. And this area right here is the headwater of that spring. It's coming out of the earth right here. I'm about maybe 100 yards up the mountain from where I took the previous peaceful video. And here is another view of the hiking trail through this incredibly beautiful pine forest. As you can see, these trees are a little bit shorter. They're probably about 45 feet. Just look at the absolutely stunning beauty of this hike. If we turn around, you can see this grove here. Just this fantastic views. I swear, when I'm on this trail, I feel like I'm hiking the forests of Yellowstone. So I wanted to take a moment to show you these absolutely beautiful ferns that are growing here. We're now down at probably about 5,700 feet, maybe 5,800 feet. And look at how these ferns have just proliferated. Now, I was told that this is a semi-tropical plant, these ferns, but what's so astonishing to me about these ferns is that in about 3.5 months, these plants will be buried under 2 feet of snow if we have a normal winter. They'll be buried under 2 feet of snow. The temperatures will be between 0 and 10 degrees. The wind frequently howls down here. And yet somehow these plants survive through that winter. These semi-tropical plants survive through that winter to come back every spring. And they are just such beautiful, healthy ferns. And you know, they really have a short growing season. Generally, these ferns don't start to bloom out until the beginning of June because of the altitude that we're at. And then by the middle of September, they're already failing. So they basically have about a 3.5 month growing season at this altitude. But look at this lush foliage. Now, I want to show you something else over here. I don't know the names of this plant, but I was told that it's a relative of elephant ears. And again, I was told that this is a semi-tropical plant. Look at the size of those leaves. Now, you may be sitting here thinking, yikes, what's with this guy? All this bantering about regarding these raspberry groves and these ferns and these elephant ear trees or elephant ear plants. But the thing to remember is that Utah is the second driest state in the Union. We annually only receive about 13 inches of rainfall, 13 to 14 inches of rainfall a year. So for example, that storm that caused that terrible flooding and those tragedies in Kentucky, that storm dumped about 8 inches. In one storm, that would be more than 50% of our annual rainfall. And in addition to that, the Wasatch Mountains that I'm in, by the way, if you look behind me, if I haven't talked enough about these wonderful these wonderful raspberry bushes and the ferns. I'll show you some more. But another thing to remember is that the Wasatch Mountains of Utah form the eastern boundary of the Great Basin Desert. And what that means in a nutshell, I've got a couple things to show you here. I'll come back to this in just a second, but I wanted to show you. So, you see that water? That's our last stream that we're going to cross before we get to the bottom of the hike. Do you remember a few minutes ago I told you that we had to cross completely over and traverse a mountain and get to the mountain that was on the horizon? Well, when we cross that stream, we're on that mountain. So at this point, it's going to be probably about 2.5 miles back down to the car. So anyway, getting back to the Great Basin Desert. So what that means is that any water that flows west out of the, sorry you guys, I'm gonna abuse you one more time showing you how much more wild raspberry we have. Out of the Wasatch Mountains, basically flows into the West Desert and just dies. I mean, it either flows into the Great Salt Lake, and you saw how dry that is, or it dries, and that's up and down the Wasatch Range. There's no drainage out here. And in fact, pretty much the core of the Great Basin Desert stretches pretty much from the Wasatch Mountains here in Utah, 500 miles east out to the Sierra Nevadas in western Nevada. So what I'm trying to say is that this is dry country. To be sure, this is dry country. And so, yeah, we probably have more of an affiliation for these plants and an appreciation for these plants because there's not a lot of it in the state, relatively speaking. Most of the state is desert. So, anyway, I hope that gives you some perspective as to why I've taken so much time to show you the flora that we've been hiking through on the trail. Now, there's probably one more section I'm going to film, probably down about another mile from here, and then I think we'll wrap up the video. Oh, I remember there was one other comment I wanted to make about the Great Basin Desert, and that is from where I'm standing, just north of Salt Lake, the nearest drainages, there are two. One of them is the Snake River, which as the crow flies is probably easily 125 miles to the north, and the other is the Green River, which is in eastern Utah, and that is again easily 150 miles east. So when this water flows out of the mountains going to the west, there just isn't any place for it to go. And it's the same thing across the whole part of most of Nevada. Again, until you get to the Sierras, or near the Sierras, or near Reno anyway. And there are some beautiful oasis mountain ranges in Nevada, like the Ruby Mountains. But again, all that water that comes out from the snowmelt and from the streams, it just goes to some place, it puddles, and then it dies. That's the Great Basin Desert in a nutshell. Okay, so I know I've shown you this before, but since this video is dedicated to the beauty of this hike, I wanted to take one more opportunity to show you. This is the area that we came across. We have a hawk up here. I don't know if you can see him. But this is the area that we came across. And if you look at that brown section, that's some of the bike coming by. If you look at this brown section, we crossed just below that brown section. That's at about the 10,000 foot mark. But again, isn't this just spectacular, this countryside?